Hello there, fellow zombie slayers. My name is Stanley557. Over the past few years, I've gone in depth to review many of the Call of Duty Zombies' numerous different games and experiences. So far, I've reviewed and gone into extreme detail about IW, AW, World War II, Black Ops 4's 9, and Cold War Zombies, with each review going into the ins and outs of each respective game and their subsequent maps. And after the Cold War review, it got me thinking, how many of these maps have audiences at home actually played? It's a fair question. Most players have experienced the groundbreaking gameplay of Origins and the equally successful Dreisendrach. But when you consider over 80% of each game's respective content is locked behind a paywall, word of mouth might be all it takes for some players to pass over something truly incredible. Those hidden gems you'll just have to get into your hands to truly understand what makes them amazing. These are additional maps that I'd highly recommend to any player alongside experiences like Ancient Evil, Mob of the Dead, and Zombies in Spaceland. So if you're a new player to the franchise, or you're the type of player to skip over any experience not often praised as one of the best, these are the maps I'd recommend next time you boot up the game. After arguably two of the worst entries in the series, Duranfong and Terra Maldicta, Vanguard Shinonuma is a course correct that happens all too late into the game's lifecycle. But for those who were suckered into purchasing Vanguard in the first place, what actually awaits players? In the next experience in our Vanguard zombie saga, Shinonuma takes players back to the Rising Sun facility first introduced in World at War. Unlike its original counterpart, Shinonuma Reborn features an additional area, a main questline, and the Vanguard Zombies perk and Covenant systems. All these little features are those changes that take Shinonuma into the modern day. But I know what you're thinking, big whoop. But as brought up by a friend of mine, Parker, one of the map's biggest changes is the introduction of the Pack-a-Punch machine to this fan-favorite locale. Across the map's various iterations, this simple alteration to the map's progression completely reworks the gameplay and focuses players' efforts towards the late game. Co-op weapon viability is something the map has always struggled with, as only one player is allowed to obtain the infinite damage Wunderwaffe, leaving 3 teammates to whatever they can scramble together across the map's 3 iterations. The only outlier in this power dynamic being Gobblegums in Black Ops 3, which in my opinion are a dubious at best band-aid towards the map's lackluster gameplay and high round co-op balance. In the modern day, Shinonuma is considered that one map that guy called Krups got to around 10,000 on. But besides that little fact, this map is typically a good time with friends until the early 20s, when most standard weaponry begins to fall off without the aid Double Tap 2.0 and Pack-a-Punch. In Vanguard, the map's introduction to the Pack-a-Punch machine extends the map's playtime and lifespan of upward to around 50 with friends, arguably the biggest jump a map remake has made since Tag der Toten. And despite being in Vanguard, Shinonuma Reborn is a solid experience all around. And the reason it takes the number 5 spot is simply because it's in Vanguard. If you were suckered into purchasing the game, or you were given it as a Christmas present, then Shinonuma is something I'd highly recommend players give a chance. But because of the $70 price tag, this is not a map I believe you should purchase Vanguard for. Coming in at number 4, we have Carrier. Taking place on an Atlas research facility, Carrier invites players to explore the doomed vessel as the undead and the recently revealed turned Oz begin their conquest to take down humanity by any means necessary. Despite Exozombies' inherent flaws, Carrier's open and modular design leads players through a hectic and fast-paced gameplay loop. The map features a plethora of overarching pathways that give players a variety of pathing options, and these pathways often lead to some of the game's best moments. There's the armory, a weapon cache that keeps all the essential equipment in one place centered right in the middle of the map, the Atlas Strike Team, an AI-focused event that allows players to approach the situation from a ton of different avenues without overly punishing them, and there's new power-ups like Explosive Touch, an ability that perfectly matches the game's high energy. And who could forget the map's wonder weapon, the LZ-52 Limbo, a long-range laser rifle that mows down the undead. I believe the map is underrated for a few reasons. One, it's an Exozombies map. The undead in the game are considered some of the series' most aggressive. The exo movement is difficult to understand and properly utilize for beginners, and most maps just don't take advantage of the exosuit's enhanced abilities. But if you have Advanced Warfare, Carrier is a map I couldn't recommend more. And while you're at it, you can hear my full thoughts on the map in this review below if you aren't quite sold. At number 3, we have Cold War's Forsaken. Despite just being reviewed in my Cold War review, Forsaken is often the most overlooked map in Cold War's catalog, so bear with me if I reverberate some of my thoughts from the Cold War video. As the final map in the first chapter of the Cold War zombie saga, Forsaken tasks players with stopping Omega before they capture the titular Forsaken and begin their global supremacy. Unlike many of Cold War's other offerings, Forsaken features a lot more meat on its bones than the map's campaign layout might imply, with its greatest strength and weakness being its gameplay and variety. Forsaken features a plethora of options for players to explore. There's the revamped No Man's Land concept, which honestly works better than it does on Moon, the map's quick and easy to complete Easter egg, the 3 arcade machines that offer players different side quests with various rewards, the pizza delivery Easter egg that can net players a ray gun, the Bubby defense Easter egg that grants players the track Samantha's Ballad, the Anytown Grand Prix, the Brickaholic side Easter egg, all the map's various radios which wrap up some of the story's loose ends, there's the zipline system which has been perfected, and these modes of transportation take the map's unruly linear design and give it a level of freedom never seen before, and finally, there's the Crystal Axe, which can be used to fight the Horde in 2 different ways. Many of these questline are fast-paced, and reward players for going out of their way to complete them. On the downside, Forsaken is a map bogged down by its identity crisis. It features the aforementioned unruly campaign layout, a mismatched enemy variety that, while impressive, collapses under its own weight, and an outstanding wonder weapon that, at times, can do more harm than good for the game's balance. But that's just me. The reason this map takes the number 3 spot is because not many people refer to it besides dismissing its lesser qualities and weak questline, a fault that even I'm prone to when reviewing maps. I believe Forsaken is more than just the sum of its parts. The map uses its experimental gameplay to reward players for exploring the level and completing its various side objectives. Many of these small questlines are simple and easy to do, and they don't require an instructional guide that looks like this. And if you also want to hear more about this map, well, there's also a funny little 3.5 hour review on Cold War that explores these thoughts more in depth. Coming in at the end of Black Ops 4's rough development, we have Tag der Toten. Following the events of Alpha Omega, Nikolai Belinsky tasked the Victus crew with one final adventure: obtain the Agarthan device, the last piece of the puzzle Nikolai must obtain in order to create a proper future. Like Forsaken after it, Tag der Toten experiments and adds changes to the overall zombies formula in the game's final moments. For starters, there's the map's 5 challenge totems that reward players for completing various different set tasks. There's the zipline system utilized to its fullest, with nearly 10 different zipline-based fast travels that close many of the map's larger gaps. Funny enough, this is the exact same design philosophy found in Forsaken, with the lighthouse in Tog acting as a similar centerpiece to Forsaken's command tower, with both areas seamlessly stitching together each map's respective zones. Alongside these ziplines, there's the buildable bundles of dynamite, which can be used to access different areas and open additional pathways as players progress throughout the game. There's also the map's extensive weapon variety. There's the classic Thunder Gun, the Tundra Gun, the Wunderwaffe DG Sharpshooter, the Matryoshka dolls, last seen, funnily enough, on Call of the Dead, the Samantha boxes, the Ray Gun Mark II, and radioactive snowballs, which can kill any standard foe if players manage to land a headshot. There's also the Phobos side Easter egg, Pablo Marinus finally becoming a character in the story's final moments, and storyline threads like Harvey Yena, the Apothecans, and Jeb Brown get a mention, and are all fleshed out one last time. One feature that goes actually unnoticed by a lot of players is the map's lengthy setup process and an amazing late game reward in the Heat Pack. There's the Golden Pack-a-Punch machine, and the free perk side Easter egg, and who forget about the map's amazing soundtrack. Toten comes in second place because of all the meat and potatoes the dev team were able to cram into this final DLC. And it's weird the map is hardly ever talked about, but that's probably because of the map's lackluster ending to the entire Aether Saga. But on its own, Toten is a map I can't recommend enough. Man, I gotta give this map a full-on review at some point. Before we get to number 1, let's shed some light on the maps that didn't quite make the cut for the list. Shangri-La, a map infamous for its difficulty and high skill ceiling. A double-edged sword that rewards skilled players for using every tactic to their advantage, but also punishes those less skilled. A beautiful map with an ageless setting, but an Easter egg that should be left in the past. Moon. Bouncing around in the final frontier, players are greeted by some of the map's best and worst mechanics. A hacking device which can do virtually anything, a moon man who can steal your perks if you aren't careful, an excavator system that puts players in dangerous situations, and on the clock at the wish to keep as many areas open as possible, and a no man's land system that seeks to reward skilled players with Pack-a-Punch and some of the game's most coveted perks, but dooms those greedy enough to spend all of their bullets in the name of profit before returning back to the actual map. Moon is all about planning your next move, and added in Chronicles is actual color definition and art design. But the map is held back by not always being the most enjoyable experience, with the level being extremely punishing to players trying to pick themselves back up. But with an Easter egg where you literally go out with a bang, I'd be remiss not to recommend it. Dead of the Night. As much as I wanted to include this map on the list, I feel Toten gets less attention, so I decided to include it on the list instead. Dead of the Night pits players in the center of an undead chaotic outbreak brought upon by the Order. The map features werewolves, Nosferatus, Crimson Nosferatus, Catalyst of the Four Variety, and the standard undead. To combat this list of horrors, players are given the ability to upgrade and obtain Alistair's prized revolver, a steak knife that allows players to impale the undead with ease, and a crossbow that dispatches those unique enemies without a second thought. With the odds against them, Treyarch gives players the tools necessary to survive, granted if players have the patience to unlock them. Like seriously, if you mess up a step to obtain the steak knife, you are permanently revoked from its presence for the rest of the game. And it doesn't help tasks like opening Pack-a-Punch are more of a chore than they should be. One of the map's greatest strengths is its attention to detail and graphical fidelity. If you ever get a chance, just grab Winter's Wail and take a moment to explore the map, and take in its sights and smells. And with a ton of unsolved Easter eggs still plaguing the community, I couldn't recommend enough for players to get back in there and solve the mysteries. Rave in the Redwoods is a difficult map for me to rank personally. While I enjoy the map's 4-wonder weapon concept, its rave mode, loads of challenges, and charms to collect and complete, there are some mechanics that bog the map down for me enough to not include it on the list. Enemies like the Slasher aren't properly balanced in combat, while the map's Super Slasher boss fight is easier than it should be. The map design is clunky, and the setup process is surprisingly easy on paper but executed quite poorly. Lighting is not utilized to properly guide players in the right direction, and the boat ride destroys the map's momentum. But Rave in the Redwoods offers players a ton of unique ways to play, but I believe there's a better map for my W that deserves the spotlight just a bit more. And in first place, we have Attack of the Radioactive Thing. Okay, hear me out. Despite my harsh criticisms of the map in my Infinite Warfare Zombies review, I've actually come around to the game mode a lot more in recent years, looking further into each map's mechanics and stylization, giving them a more fair, considerate analysis. One such map I've come around to recently is Attack of the Radioactive Thing, so consider this section an early rework of said review. Attack of the Radioactive Thing has players take control of the IW crew, as they are transported to the 50s to take part in, well, Attack of the Radioactive Thing, Willard Wyler's homage to the horror block Elvira's Movie Macabre, a television series that hosted 50s B-movies during the early 80s. A feature I hardly praised the map for previously was its level of freedom and player choice. The map functions almost like a reworked Transit, featuring many various buildables and traps scattered around the playspace. You've got a seismic wave generator, a literal death ray, a hypnosis device which acts like a Spaceland boombox, a mind control gizmo, and scattered around the playspace, players can find upgrade attachments for the Mad Wonder Weapon, a powerful hand cannon that, when fully upgraded and charged, acts like a thunder gun, Once players run out of ammo, they can locate Krog pods that instantly refill the weapon's ammunition. There's also connectable teleporters, which act as a means of fast travel across the map's 2 corners, 2 distinct melee weapons which interact with numerous mechanics in slightly different ways, a Krog Brute which suits the map's open level flow very well, and there's the Krogzilla model, which is nothing short of impressive, and while the boss fight can be very gimmicky, it's very well animated, almost like Chord Effects in the Archon. And the reason this map takes the #1 spot is because not even I gave it the time of day when I was first playing and reviewing it, blindsiding my analysis to the map's Easter egg and its chemistry step. But honestly, actually playing the map is a lot more fun than I originally believed. And despite some of the map's shortcomings like its lighting, characters, and Easter eggs, these are also aspects that are awful about transit. And hey, if there's anything we love doing in the zombies community, it's comparing maps to one another, like they're siblings competing for our approval. And those are just some of the underrated gems in the zombies catalog. Are there any maps you think deserve more of the spotlight? Let me know in the comment section below. I love hearing everyone's thoughts. And if you liked this video, I couldn't recommend enough all my other long-form productions. Thank you all for watching. And remember, keep on slaying.